In this video, we are going to go through Donald Trump's complete immigration plan, some of the immigration camps he plans to develop, his plans for deporting individuals, camps for single adults, what could happen to DACA recipients, migrants who are here on asylum cases. We have Donald Trump's entire plan with the deportation intentions. Let's start first, though, by listening to how Donald Trump just described the problems of immigration in Texas. Here we go.
Yeah. You'll be able to focus on other things in Texas. We love Texas, and what they've done is very unfair. They've given the job to you. It's a job of security for our country. It's a job of stopping an invasion, because it's an invasion. And you've done a great job, and thank you very much for the endorsement, Greg. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
It's important for a couple of reasons, Brian.
There you have it. That is Donald Trump suggesting that immigration is an invasion. So what's his plan? What does he intend to do about it? Well, we've got a complete breakdown written out here. So number one, Donald Trump plans to create immigration camps, sprawling camps, much in the mindset of how Sheriff Joe Arpaio used to have Tent City. Take a look at this. Tent City was pretty famous for basically being a place where prisoners in Maricopa County, Arizona, would be placed not in expensive prisons, but rather tents. And in some cases, men were given pink underwear and clothing to wear to essentially humiliate them for committing the crimes that they did. So these were Sheriff Joe Arpaio's tent cities. A lot of folks are expecting that Donald Trump's deportation camps may seem just like this. These sort of prisoner camps, except now deportation camps. So number one would be mass deportation camps. Number two, Donald Trump wants to revive his first border policy of banning entry from Muslim majority nations. This was back then nicknamed the Muslim ban. Now that is obviously a little more politically incorrect to say, but essentially, if you're coming from specific countries where the population is a higher percentage Muslim, there's a chance you might not just face a ban from moving to America, you might actually face a complete ban from even visiting America. To help conduct these sort of immigration deportation efforts, Donald Trump expects to enlist not just Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, but he also plans to implement the Insurrection Act, which the Supreme Court has suggested that these sorts of acts can be used in war times. And Donald Trump is expected to declare essentially a war on immigration, utilize the Insurrection Act, then deputize the National Guard and local police departments to help deport and round up immigrants and bring them to the mass deportation camps. This is a complete breakdown of Donald Trump's plans. They, to many, will seem very extreme. To many others, they will seem like exactly the right thing to do. Of course, what the right thing is and how much of this will actually be a reality is all to be debated. But a lot of Donald Trump's immigration plan seems to throw back to Operation Wetback. Yeah, Operation Wetback was a 1954 deportation event. Take a look at this. During Operation Wetback, tens of thousands of immigrants were shoved into buses, boats, planes, and often sent to unfamiliar parts of Mexico where they struggled to rebuild their lives. In Chicago, 3 planes a week were filled with immigrants and were flown to Mexico. In Texas, 25% of all immigrants were deported by being crammed onto boats, later compared to slave ships, while others died of sunstroke, disease, and other causes in custody. Here are Mexican farm laborers going to California. That was an immigration coming in, but Operation Wetback was the operation to actually round up and deport individuals from Mexico. Donald Trump's plans today are being compared to Operation Wetback. That was during Eisenhower's term. In addition, Donald Trump expects to limit or eliminate the ability for individuals to get visas if you're a student and you participated in any anti-Israel or pro-Palestinian protests. So this is not pro-Hamas protests. If you participated in anti-Israel, pro-Palestine protests, your student or foreign visa would be revoked. In addition to that, if you are, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's an addition on that. Oh, yeah, right here. Sorry about that. Additionally, people who have come to America for asylum, such as the thousands of Afghan individuals who have migrated to America to seek shelter and asylum from the Taliban takeover following the American troop withdrawal in 2021. Anyone who came to America under that sort of asylum would have their asylum status, quote, re-vetted. So basically going through those from Afghanistan who came here to make sure that they are actually eligible to stay here. The next thing Donald Trump would do is he would end birthright citizenship for babies born in the United States to undocumented parents. Currently, in case you're not aware, if you are, whether you are illegal, you are a citizen of a different country, whether you're undocumented, whatever it is, if you have a baby in or on American land or an American military base, you have the right to American citizenship and a social security card. You are an American citizen. Donald Trump plans to end that, which will almost certainly end up in the Supreme Court, but he plans to just end it. Stephen Miller, who was the Trump architect of Trump's first-term immigration policies, was interviewed by the NY Times. And their strategy, I find this very interesting, their strategy is literally to not rely on Congress to come up with some kind of substantive legislation. Instead, they plan to use the powers under acts like the Insurrection Act, but also the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to expel basically anybody that they want, certainly criminals, but also potentially migrants. Insurrection Act being used for the border, the Alien Enemies Act being used for crime and cartels. Donald Trump's Steve Miller suggests that the immigration legal activists won't know what's happening. We are going to overwhelm them. We are going to blitz them with so many changes. Immigration rights lawyers will be overwhelmed. That's their strategy, is to literally overwhelm the immigration policies to overwhelm the attorneys with immigration policies that Donald Trump implements. In addition to that, Donald Trump plans to suspend the nation's refugee program, basically barring visitors from any kind of troubled country. He would be demanding bilateral engagement with Mexico to support in this deportation effort. Otherwise, he would threaten to either sanction or restrict free trade between the United States and Mexico. He also expects to re-invoke Title 42, except rather than citing COVID, he would cite severe strains of the flu, tuberculosis, scabies, and RSV, as well as any other potential illnesses that could be imported through immigration. Mr. Miller is a big fan of this sort of disruption, suggesting that this mass deportation will be a labor market disruption that will be celebrated by American workers who will now be offered higher wages with better benefits to fill these jobs. Americans will also celebrate the fact that our nation's laws are now being applied equally rather than selectively for specific groups. Okay, there are two parts here. Let's start with the second one. This is a slam against Biden because Biden allowed individuals from Venezuela to basically stay here. It was about 400,000 migrants were allowed to come here. And if they were here or they could somehow substantiate they were here before July 31st, they would be allowed to stay and would get work authorization. That's that sort of selective, hey, you could stay, you can't decision-making that the Trump administration is seeking to unwind. The second thing is the Federal Reserve has indicated that the growing labor force is helping us reduce labor force wage pressures. So even Jerome Powell does agree that the increasing immigration we have seen has reduced the ability of workers to see even higher wages. However, Jerome Powell paints that in a positive light because we don't want a wage price spiral because that could become unsustained. And while we want wages to go up, we don't want them to go up so fast that they cause inflation. Donald Trump's team is only painting this of the angle of, you want to make more money? Elect us so we can deport everyone, much like the Operation Wetback of 1954, the Eisenhower plan. Obviously, that's a bad word now, worth noting. Back then, it wasn't. The reason people from Mexico were called wetback was because they swam across the Rio Grande to come to America. And so hence when they came upon American land, they were wet physically. It's kind of like in Cuba or Cubans who were fleeing Cuba who came to Florida. Florida has a wet, or I think they ended this. They had the wet foot, dry foot policy. It was basically if the Coast Guard catches you in the water, they could send you back. But if your feet hit the sand and your feet were dry, basically you hit the sand, you could stay. Okay. Overly simplistic naming, I suppose. Anyway, Donald Trump expands to make the process of finding and deporting undocumented immigrants and migrants already living in the country, quote, radically more quick and efficient. He would also bring in the right kind of attorneys to deal with and the right kind of policy thinkers to basically install a team around him that would prevent him and his immigration plans from being constrained in any way. As far as these camps, these deportation camps, he expects the deportation camps will be used for single adults, that facilities could be used for families and children, and that the deportation camps will be used for single adults, probably starting with single men. And again, they would deputize the National Guard, local police officers, in addition to obviously ICE, which is already deputized, to deport and conduct these mass deportations of migrants or undocumented individuals out of America. This is Donald Trump's plan to solve the immigration crisis in America. Now, at the same time, just to give you an update on some of the latest, Speaker Mike Johnson met with Donald Trump yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. Johnson has been fundraising in Florida, and obviously, anytime you go to a Republican event at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump makes money, and the politicians who go there to hold events get donations because you're required to donate to go to the event. So Donald Trump makes money and the other person makes money because people want to shake hands with Trump and these other people. Johnson publicly endorsed Trump a week ago during a Squawk Box interview on CNBC. He says, quote, "I'm all in for President Trump. I expect he'll be our nominee and we'll have to make Joe Biden a one-term president." That's what Speaker Johnson said. He said that he's one of the closest allies of President Trump in Congress. Johnson played a key role in the 2020 Electoral College Challenge, actually helping round up support and brief backing to overturn the Joe Biden victory on Jan 6. The Supreme Court ended up rejecting that lawsuit. So what's interesting, though, is in 2015, according to Punchbowl News, back when he was still a state lawmaker, not at the federal level, since now he's obviously in the House of Representatives, Johnson wrote on Facebook, quote, "The thing about Donald Trump is that he lacks the character and moral center we desperately need again in the White House." So you have a little bit of a flip-flop here, but hey, people have the right to change their minds. I mean, come on. I changed my mind a lot. The NRCC reported raising $5 million in October. Let's see here. That is the National Republican Congressional Committee. Democrats are betting that infrastructure can turn around Biden's fortunes. You know, what's interesting is I just posted a video on Tesla, how basically Ford is scaling back their EV manufacturing plans, and that's going to reduce the number of jobs that you're actually creating in America under Bidenomics and the Biden electric vehicle subsidy plan via the Inflation Reduction Act. By Ford scaling back, you're taking workers' jobs from 2,400 to 1,700. If that happens ubiquitously, you will actually see a substantially weaker labor environment going forward. Today, President Joe Biden will be heading to the Joint Air Force Base Andrews. I guess he's heading over to Nantucket, Massachusetts. And this is obviously wrapping up the week here as we get into the Thanksgiving holiday and Black Friday. Let's take a look at some of the comments that we have here. Let's see here. Why do the homeless decide not to take jobs that illegals are willing to take? There's quite a likelihood that you are dealing with massive mental health problems, frankly. It's very sad, but it's very likely. You know, that is like the N-word for Mexicans. Well, yeah, that's the thing. You have to be careful, but we're talking about the historical context here. The fact that it was actually called Operation Wetback. Yeah, it's a bad word. Just saying, it's crazy. That was deemed normal back then. Sheriff Joe Arpaio was deemed a racist. There was a point in time I could be pulled over at any point just for looking Mexican, says commenter Red Bill here. We need more immigration judges and visa reforms. We have a worker shortage. Why should we ban people from coming in, says Tron. End of the line. Okay. Charming Trump pick, says someone. Not to deport immigrants, to deport illegal immigrants. Two completely different things. Very well. All right, so some interesting commentary. So anyway, this will be very fascinating to see Donald Trump's immigration plans evolve. But Donald Trump and immigration, let's just say, are going to be hand in hand in how Donald Trump tries to convince Americans to vote for him. He did just get endorsed by Greg Abbott of Texas. You know what's really crazy? Okay, this is crazy. You're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. See this plane, this little model plane right here. Okay, this is my plane. The former owner of this plane, the plane was built in 2021, and the former owner owned it for a year. The former owner of this plane used to fly Greg Abbott, his wife, and their dog around in this plane. Didn't actually smell like dog when they got there. It smelled pretty new. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting. Greg Abbott has basically been on my plane many times, apparently. This is kind of cool. I have no way of fact-checking the owner, but based on what that owner does for a living, I think he's right. Anyway, yeah, there we have it. Thank you so much for watching today's Politics live stream. This is definitely live, Mr. Christian whatever, who's asking if this is live. Yep, this is live. My goal is to bring a live stream here every day the market is open. I want to do a politics live stream on this channel here at 9 a.m. That's the goal. I'm confused how illegal immigrants can even function in the U.S. Like, do they drive without a license? Yes. But however, there are also states that will provide you a driver's license, even if you're undocumented. Don't pay taxes. You could get a taxpayer identification number, even if you're undocumented, so that at least the IRS gets their money. And then when you have a TIN, you can apply for insurance. And yes, you can send your children to public schools, even if you are undocumented in many states throughout the country. So surprisingly, yeah, you could do a lot of things and technically not even be legal here. Yes. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Good luck.